Hello and welcome. You've joined us for the Good News Review, August edition, and I'm with my friend Mark, and he's going to tell us about a brilliant story of a man who was full of macho and bravado, party animal, and all so empty, and now he's changed so much. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, indeed. And I encourage you to get this month's edition of the Good News paper. Take note of this story. It starts off, though, with a man who comes from a stable, loving family, a churchgoer. He gets kicked out of college, and then everything changes. He finds refuge in the gym and becomes really committed to the gym and a partying lifestyle. He has a life that's based on ego, on appearance. He eventually becomes a firefighter and goes even deeper into this egotistical, party, gym, everyday lifestyle. He eventually has 2 children, and suddenly the weight of his responsibilities, the weight of his failings as a man hit him hard. In the midst of this bout of depression, he keeps meeting a girl that he went with, become a Christian. She keeps inviting him to church, and just to shut her up, he says, he goes to church. Well, when he goes to church, he hears something that he's never heard before, accepts it, and he discovers that God is real, and he finds Jesus. This is why we want you to get this month's edition of the Good News, just to be challenged and to know that the peace that you need, the fulfillment that you need, doesn't come from anything outside of Jesus, as this formerly macho firefighter found out. And perhaps it will challenge you also to consider your priorities and consider where you get your hope and happiness from. Colin, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I say to people about life after death, and they often say to me, well, no one's ever come back to tell us. Well, my answer to that would be, well, Jesus came back. But also there's lots of increasingly incredible stories of people who've had these visions and experiences. And the front page of the Good Newspaper this month has such a story. A man has a vision when clinically dead. So this guy, his name's Trevor Palmer, and he died for 15 minutes, clinically dead, as attested by the doctors in a hospital in Norwich, and he went in for a simple procedure to reduce his heart fluctuations, and he woke up 3 days later. He'd been in a coma and he was on life support, and he said that he had this peace about him, because in a way I felt my old body, I still had that, but somehow I had a new spirit. But then he goes on to say, well, I had a vision in that time, a dream. He was in a large room, a peaceful room, and there by his bedside was his church pastor, his church minister called Noel. And Noel was reading a Bible, and he could see himself lying on the bed. A couple of days later, this church minister, Noel, came to visit. He was when he told him his story, because it was exactly what actually happened. Noel had been standing by his bedside reading the Bible. He was reading this Bible verse: I will not die, but live and proclaim what the Lord has done. That's from one of the Psalms. And Trevor is absolutely convinced now that God has allowed him to have this extra time on this earth so that he could go out and tell others that there is a God who cares and who's in control. And since then he's had several major operations, feels no fear at all because he knows God's watching over him. What about you? Do you have fears, worries about things health-wise or after death? Do you know what's going to happen to you? Why don't you read the Good Newspaper? Why don't you read the Bible and find out the truth, what we believe is the truth? Mark, back over to you.
So for those 2 stories and many others, we encourage you to get this month's edition of the Good Newspaper. Give it a read, and also pick up your Bible and give it a read and be challenged. Ask the questions, but know that the answers can be given with a legitimate search, just like this macho firefighter, for example, did find the answer to his searching, his longing, his emptiness. He found it in Jesus Christ. God bless.